Hello, everyone. My name is Hank Setala, and I'm here with Casey MacBride for another amazing, fun, exciting episode of Stir Crazy Shamans. And the really cool thing is, this is the first day we're actually live streaming to our official new channel. So definitely please like and subscribe and share with whoever you feel is going to get inspiration from what we're talking about. But basically, this morning, I'm going to turn it right over to Casey because I'm at the center here. We just filmed a meditation and movement class, a shameless plug for another virtual offering we have here at the center. But Casey's going to be doing a little bit of messages and channeling, and then I'll hop back on and offer contribution too, based on the energy of what comes through in the messages.
All right. So yeah, for a little while now, for a long time, I've been communicating with my guides, and whenever I would ask them a question, I would just get such clear communication from them, and they always had just the perfect words for me, and was always so helpful. And one day decided to try it for other people, and on a one-on-one basis, it worked really well. So a little while ago, I decided, why not try it in general with messages that might help all of us? So what I'm about to do is I'm going to call in and ask one of my guides, whoever decides to speak up, to speak through me, to use me as the hollow bone or the vessel for these messages to come through. And then I'll ask a question. Right. So I think the question for today, well, let's see, what feels lightest? What could we all benefit from? Oh, also, if anyone has any comments during this, because I don't know exactly how long we're going to be before Hank gets back on, then please just send a comment. If you have a question that you think we could all benefit from, please ask, and I could channel a message. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and get started here. The question I think we'll ask is, for those of us experiencing more anxiety due to the uncertainty we feel around this quarantine so many of us are experiencing, what is the best way for us to proceed in order to experience more peace? So that's the general question, a little more specific. How can we best proceed during this time of uncertainty, during this quarantine? So I'll begin now. Actually, let me really quickly see if I can get this set up here. Sorry, bear with me. Okay. Just wanted to make sure I had all the comments so I can see when they do come through. All right, so without further ado, Great Spirit, oneness, source, the universe, my guides, my angels, my animal guides, my plant guides, my ancestors, all of my guides of all shapes, forms, and sizes, please be with me now. Work with me and through me. Use me as the vessel through which your healing energy will flow, through which your wisdom and your words that might benefit myself and all of us for our highest good might flow. I ask the question now, how might we best proceed in these times of uncertainty during this pandemic? This message is coming from my angel guides. Know that sometimes there is nothing to be done on the physical level. Especially in these times when so many of us are being asked to stay in our homes, not to go out into the world and be active. Sometimes it is not so important what we do in terms of our physical actions. Instead, focus on what is happening inside of you. We are being called now. We are being called by the planet, by our Mother Earth, and by the powerful energies in the universe. We are being called as a planet, as a collective, to wake up. Now is the time to awaken. For those who have put off focusing on their spiritual path, for those who have put off their growth and their development, who have used the excuse of being too busy, of having too much else to focus on, now is the time to wake up. Go within. When was the last time you asked yourself, who am I? Do you know who you are? And know that any answer that comes on the level of the mind is not the truth. Ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? And if you don't know who you are, if the answer that comes back is, I don't know, then you're in a wonderful place. It may not seem like it to you, but you are now open to receiving. And sometimes the greatest thing you can do in the moment is just to relax and be. We have the mindset that we always need to be accomplishing something. Even when we are still and not moving on a physical level, just lying in our beds, we feel that we must be accomplishing something, planning our next move, learning from what happened in the past. But the greatest, most powerful thing you can do in moments of stillness is just to be, to experience. And in just being, without needing to interpret your reality, the truth of who you are will shine through. You will discover your essence, your true nature, by just allowing yourself to be. In this time when we are slowing down, doing less on a physical level, begin to do less on a mental, emotional level. See if just for a moment you can do so little that you don't even feel or think, that just for a moment you ask yourself, what would I be if I had not even my own thoughts? Would I still exist? Who am I? Experience. Do not answer with your mind, but experience directly. Who am I? It is time to wake up. Thank you. Thank you to my angel guides. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Seems like we've still got a little bit of time before we resume, so I'm going to check in and make sure no one has mentioned, because I know sometimes we don't do it correctly, or we set up the Facebook, or we have comments when we're not aware. Does not look like it, I don't think. So we'll see. We'll go on and ask another question. Okay. So the next question for us. Does it need to be related to the pandemic? I don't think so. Well, we were just talking about the mass awakening. Is there anything in particular, other than focusing on who we are, that we can do to aid others who might be just waking up for the first time? who may be confused during this process. So the question I'm going to ask to my guides is, what can those of us who are more experienced and awake do to assist those who are just waking up for the first time? All of my guides, I please present this question to you. Use me as the hollow bone, the vessel for your words and wisdom to flow. What can we do, those of us who are more awake and aware? What can we do to help those who are just waking up for the first time? This message is coming from one of the ascended beings that I work with. Be patient. Remember where you came from. Remember that we all had to go through our fair share of suffering, of confusion, in order to get where we are today. The process of awakening is very messy for most of us, much like the process of giving birth. It can be a painful, messy experience for us to wake up. And we need to see that those who are waking up for the first time may not always be doing so in a way that seems peaceful or seems conducive to awakening. They may seem very chaotic. They may seem to be spreading suffering. We may not even recognize it as awakening. And in truth, there's no real way for us to know whether or not that person is ready to wake up and is, in fact, in the process of their true awakening. And so, treat everyone as though they have the potential to wake up any moment. Think back on your own awakening process. In the time, there may have been a lot of suffering, but we can now look back fondly because we know that it led to a more perfect, peaceful, whole version of ourselves. So we can look back fondly on those memories, even the ones that seemed so intense at the time. We look back knowing that they were a part of this beautiful experience that we now have in this moment. So look fondly also upon those who are now in the process of awakening themselves. Look fondly upon them. Realize that the vast beauty of the universe is unfolding and awakening within them. It was always present, and now it is being born into form through the conscious mind of a human being. One of the most miraculous, incredible things that can happen in the entirety of the universe is occurring within these people. Have love for them. Look upon them fondly and care for them. Sometimes all we can do is listen in the moment, even if it's unpleasant or uncomfortable for us. Sometimes listening and holding the vibration of love and peace is enough to shift that person into a place where not only they are more peaceful themselves, but we may set them up to awaken. By holding that space of peace, that high vibration, we can set the space for that person to fully awaken in that moment. And you don't know when that moment is coming around for any being. There's no way for you to know for sure. And so, hold that space for everyone. Hold that space for everyone. Be the light. Be the space. In a time where people are experiencing the messy process of awakening, be the pure light and joy that allows them to make the transition just a little more effortlessly, and watch as the whole world awakens and a beautiful new reality unfolds in front of us. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the message. Does anyone have any particular questions? Hank, are you there? If not, I'll keep going. I'll ask another question. Let's double check. Okay. So, next question from Spirit. I'm kind of drawing a blank on this. So I think what Hank had mentioned was we were going to do a little bit of language of light. This is something that I didn't know was a thing until just a couple of, last night actually. I found out it was something that more people than just I do. I was talking to a friend of mine. I apologize. Give me one moment. The cat here is begging to get in. She wants to be a part of the show. So we're going to have a friend with us today. In the background, this is Fiona. And she gets very curious whenever I'm doing any kind of energy work or channeling or messaging, anything like that. She always wants to be a part of it. So she's here now. So I think I'm going to ask the question now of Spirit. For those of us feel called or who work with the language of light, how can we use this to benefit not just ourselves, but all of those we encounter, all of those around us? How can we use the language of light to benefit all of us? I ask my spirits, oneness, source, consciousness, work with me, in me, and through me. I present to you the question, for those of us who feel called to the language of light, how can we use it to benefit ourselves and others? I think this next message comes from Fiona the cat. No, there's a being coming through that I have not worked with before. A being from somewhere in the upper realms, I think. But not one that I recognize. Not a form or a race of beings that I recognize. Thank you for being here. What is your message for us? The language of light is a powerful thing for those who have access to it. It takes a certain level of openness to be able to receive something as pure and spontaneous as the language of light. Not many people on this planet are ready and in that space where they can receive this language. And for those of us who can, it is important that we develop a pure relationship with it. The language of light is a tool through which we can communicate with words things that are far beyond words. Even for those of us who are listening, most of us would never be able to translate the things that we speak into words in our own native tongue. We would never be able to translate it into our own language. But the energy behind the words, the songs, is a way of transmitting more information than we could possibly transmit if we were to sit and talk and try to explain these things over years and years. We can communicate more energy, more information than if we were spending years sitting down and talking with a person. So the language of light is very, very powerful. Be wise about when you use the language of light, for not all are ready to receive it. And for those who are so blocked off to the language of light that they may react in a negative way, that they may become more contracted in response to hearing it, that is not wise to present it to them. So use your discretion. Use your discretion when sharing the language of light. But do not let that discourage you. Allow the language of light to flow when you feel called to allow it to flow, whether you're sharing it with the person you're most intimate and comfortable with, or whether you're sharing it with a wide audience of the entire world. When you feel comfortable to share it, you will know, and it will be right. So share when you feel called to share, but do not force the language of light on anyone. And do not force yourself to use the language of light when it does not feel right. It will flow when it wants to flow. Treat it with respect. Be open to it. Develop a relationship with the language of light. A relationship that allows you to be open and receive and never judge. And as you begin to understand this tool more and more, you will realize that it can be used for the most powerful healing. The language of light is indeed a tool for healing and growth and to aid the awakening of the planet. So use it. Use it for the good of all, for your own growth and development, for the growth and development and healing of the entire world. And don't be afraid. Embrace it, love it, accept it. For some of us, we may be uncomfortable sharing the language of light with others. And if you're not ready to share it, that's entirely okay. Continue to develop your own relationship with it. But do not be afraid of the judgment of others. Yes, have discretion and don't share it with those who aren't ready. But also realize that many, many people are and can benefit if we can get over our own fears, our own discomforts, and embrace the language of light, realizing it's a very real and powerful thing. Then we can benefit so many people. So open up, embrace it, and share it with those who are ready. Don't be afraid. Accept the language of light. Learn, grow. We love you. We love you. We love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, that was very helpful for me. I didn't, that was much more than I knew about the language of light before channeling that message. So that was very helpful. I didn't even know it was. I mean, I guess I could have extrapolated that it was a tool for healing and transmitting information, but I certainly didn't have that conceptual knowledge. Let's see how we're doing here. Anyone have any comments, any questions they would like me to ask? Any at all? So I don't see anything coming through in the feed. Send a quick message to Hank and see what's going on. Okay. I guess we'll continue to channel messages. We'll just continue to have fun. So what did we touch on so far? The pandemic, how to assist those who are awakening, the language of light. What direction are we moving in? Okay. So, there's Hank. I was just trying to figure out what the next question was going to be.
Yeah, I was just finishing up. I'm sorry that I couldn't be present with everyone sooner.
That's all right.
But one thing I wanted to bring up, because we didn't really create a context for what channel messages are, and I heard you talking about the last one about light language. So what exactly, how would you explain channeling to someone so people have a little context about what you're doing right now?
Yeah, that could have been a better place to start from.
Well, it may have been, but this morning was kind of chaotic because I was finishing up with another event, and I have to learn virtually. Got to space them out a little bit more. Never had to worry about that before.
So what I'm doing, and I kind of touched on it a little bit when I just got started, but I'm communicating with spiritual beings. Sometimes it's a specific being that comes through. Sometimes it may just be like what people call like higher self or source that speaks through me. But it started out with me developing a dialogue with my spirit guides. And spirit guides are the spiritual beings that follow us around throughout our lifetime in order to help us to grow, to heal us, to assist us on our life path. And so in developing communication with them, whenever I had a question where I really needed something answered, I would sit down, ask them, and they would always respond in a way that was just the communication came through so clearly, and it was always exactly what I needed to hear, and it was so perfect and wise. And part of me was like, wow, I'm not that wise. There's no way I could come up with that stuff. So I eventually started doing some readings where, since I can see my guides and communicate with them, I can also see other people's guides and communicate with them. So I would do one-on-one readings for people where I would, I'm sitting or, if I'm in the room with a person, I can see their guides around them. They ask me a question. I go, hey, you got that question right. What's the response? And then I would listen and allow the words from their guides to flow through. Now, in this setting, I ask a general question for all of us. So the messages that come through are a little more broad and general. The spirits are pretty good at tailoring the message to the audience. But I ask, whichever guide of mine or of anyone's wants to come through and speak through me, I present a question, and whoever wants to speak up, speaks up. So sometimes, like in the first case, the first angel that came through, it's one of my angel guides, and she put her hand on my shoulder and then started setting the energy for the words to come through. And for the other questions, I also had guides that came up and in a similar way. But yeah, I just kind of opened myself to being like we call like the hollow bone. So any energy that wants to flow through, I let it flow through. And in order to get myself into the space to do that, I have to connect with, I don't know if it's the right word, but I bring myself into the space of the sacred silence, where there is really no thought going on. There's no emotion. I'm just kind of there as the stillness. And then from that space, out of that, the words and energy starts to flow.
And for anybody just joining us, Casey is taking general questions and asking that to spirit, and then doing channeled messages from divinity, from angels, from spirit guides. So if there's a particular question that would be relevant for the greater community as a whole that you want us to pose to Casey, please take a moment, make it in comments, and we can definitely have him tune in and see what answer he gets. And one thing I wanted to add, for people who are interested in doing what Casey does, there is a prayer that my teacher Elaine Thomas from Fellowships uses, and I think I've done this one of our past broadcasts, but it's a great way to open yourself up to the spirit world and only be in the space where the highest and best are going to come through for you and who you're working with. And that starts by saying, of course, I always blank out whenever I start to do this. We give thanks. Oh, let's see. As we open the door to communication and healing, in the unity of the Holy Spirit, the great I am presence of the universe, we give thanks where we know that the word spoken and the experience received is full of your grace, truth, wisdom, love, and understanding of the highest. Amen. And we always open our, before we would do a reading for somebody with that, with the idea that only the spirits that are going to be healing, nurturing, and be a contribution for the person come through. Because if your uncle was a jerk in person, he might be a jerk in the spirit world too. We don't want to hear from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that comes down to, I think I touched on it in one of our past talks as well. Also, doing that can help to prevent this in the first place. But sometimes a being will come through that you're not really sure of, and that just comes down to that sort of intuition and sense that we get when we first meet a person. We kind of get this like intuition of like, oh, he's a great guy, or yeah, I don't want to associate with that guy. And same thing in spirit. If spirit shows up and you're like, you don't really know about this being, he might not want to channel messages from that particular being.
And there's kind of a check and balance thing that you can use too. This is originally from the Oxford group and is highly widely used in AA for testing what you get during meditations, as if it's from the light or if it was something from something else, from ego perhaps. And it's called the four absolutes. Is it loving? Is it honest? Is it selfless? Is it pure? If the message that you get checks against those four things, chances are it's a being that being of the light. And if you happen to get something that it doesn't quite match up with those four things, it might be a time to step back and maybe think, is that a being I really want to be dialoguing with?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, I don't know if you were listening for the first part when I first asked the question about language of light, but yeah, being came through that I'd never worked with before. I couldn't really describe, but yeah, excellent example of this being showed up. But again, the feeling was extremely light. This being showed up, extremely light feeling, and I could feel love and caring energy coming from that being. So without question, I was like, okay, that's the message that's coming through, and so yeah, it's might take a little. I think it's less about like practice and developing that ability as it is starting to really have faith in your own ability to do this sort of thing, and it is a skill also that we can develop.
And tell me, what were the first questions that you channeled and got an answer for? And then let's see if I come up with a question.
So the first question was I don't know the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of in this time. During this pandemic, when a lot of us are feeling a lot of uncertainty, what's the best way for us to proceed? What could we do during this time of uncertainty? And I don't remember what I said at all. I don't remember what message came through. The second question was about the mass awakening happening. I asked for those of us who are already awake and more conscious, what can we do to assist those who are just waking up for the first time? And a lot of messages about like just being understanding, remembering that for us, a lot of us had to go through a lot of suffering and discomfort for the awakening process, and recognize that we just need to be caring and open and loving toward those people and hold a high vibrational state for them, because they may not be in a peaceful place, even if they're on the path to awakening. They may be causing a lot of suffering and chaos for themselves and others. And also, the one thing that came through is there's no way for us to really know for 100% certainty whether or not someone is awakening or not. So hold that vibration for everyone. And then, go ahead.
No, I was just kind of going along with what you were saying.
And then the last one was since I had learned about the term language of light last night, even though it's something I've been doing for years and years and years. I just learned it was a thing. So I asked for those of us who feel called toward the language of light or who already work with it, how can we use it to for the highest good of ourselves and others? That was the last one.
Yeah, and I've been doing. I call it something different, but language lighter when you're allowing the words or the frequency from spirit to come through. And sometimes it sounds like a very concise language, and sometimes it sounds a little bit more woo wooey. I guess would be the say, like just kind of noises that you make. And one way, if you want to start opening yourself up to that, is just when you're by yourself in the shower or something like that. Just open up and be like, is see if anything comes through, and or even just start doing it and then see if something starts happening. If you just start kind of making something up, singing it. I caught what Casey was doing yesterday, and you have a great singing voice, by the way. At least to me,
Oh,
that it was coming through.
thank
Um,
you.
but
Well,
but
yeah.
but it was like if you just start kind of singing nonsense or something like that, and the next moment you might actually feel that it's actually coming through you. It's not like you just doing it anymore. It's actually you started the process, and just you kind of starting it off by making something up, it can open the door for you to actually start to be in the flow of it.
Absolutely. And it was a cool synchronicity as far as how I came to discover this. I was doing a channeled message live stream on my own Facebook page, and was just asking questions for people, and uh, a bit of like talk about sort of law of attraction type stuff came up. And someone just sent me a message who I didn't even know I was friends with. Must have like been a like suggested friend based on our mutual friends or whatever. And just felt called to reach out to me and was like, "Hey, I missed your thing, but I kind of saw like a part of it," and started talking. And then I don't know what. Oh, she was asking. She said she kind of does like channeling for like her friends, but she never really called it that. And then I don't know how the topic came up, but one of us mentioned like this. Uh, like talking in another language and like singing in another language, and the other one was like, I've been doing the same thing for like years and years, and she knew what it was called. She had a word for it. She called it like language of light, and I was like, I've never heard it called that before. So yeah, just happened to be someone who like and we have like a bunch of mutual friends and everything, and never even knew this person, and she just happened to reach out, and so I learned that, and I decided to share last night again, you know, a little song that came through from Spirit. But yeah, it's I never really thought a whole lot about it. I just allowed it to flow whenever it flowed. But the message that came through from Spirit today of it being like this powerful tool for healing and for like transmitting a ton of information in a way that you know, we couldn't transmit through our native language is really cool. So I'm excited to learn more about it and expand on it
Yeah.
more.
Well, and you'll be happy to know that in the Shaman Apprenticeship program, one of the weekends does just that.
Oh, awesome.
Well, and the way that because allowing the spirit to work through you, you start by doing it with your Yanapek, which is your in our tradition the seven spirit beings that are kind of with you, and you start by letting them come through you to speak or through you to move you or whatever, and teaching you how to do it, so then you can do it with other spirits. You've already been doing it, but if people are going to be looking to develop that ability, then it's really good to start with your guides and letting your guides kind of sing through you and that type of thing, because you know that it's a safe place. Especially in spiritualism, we have one of the most important guides is called the gatekeeper. Usually somebody of a like a native tradition of some like one of the, if you're in Africa, it could be a Bushman. If you're in the North American, it could be a Native American Indian. Somebody that's usually like a native look to them, and then they would be the gatekeeper for making sure that nothing comes through that you're not ready for, and it's like their job. So if you're open to knowing that you have that kind of support in spirit, know that nothing is ever going to come through that you're not ready for, because your guides have your back, especially if you say, hey, have my back, because that's what they're there for.
Absolutely. And we always our guides are always there watching us, helping us. But yeah, when we engage in a conscious way and actually ask for their assistance, they're able to do so much more for us. So don't be afraid to ask. Your guides are there, even if you're not aware of them, even if you're not aware of what they look like, or you know what if you've never really spoken to them before or whatever. You know, just start asking questions, even if you get nothing back that you're aware of in the beginning. Sometimes just that silence is the greatest communication, and that will expand, and you'll eventually develop a deeper communication with them. But just start talking.
Yeah, and know that it's not always necessarily language like where Casey and I are talking right now, especially when I'm working with clients one-on-one doing coaching or whatnot, what I need to tell them comes through as an energy, and it's like now I got to distill that down into like what I'm going to say, but like I have the energy of it, and that's what the real language of spirit is. It's energy, and then how it gets filtered from the brain and things like that. So you might find that if you're doing a lot of Indian chanting, for example, you might be chanting things that sound very much like that because you already have a knowledge and it's coming through that filter. But it could also be something completely unfamiliar to you, and just be open and allowing of however it shows up for you, because it's a beautiful gift when it happens.
And oh wow, I had like the perfect little segue, and then it completely left me. Channeling. Oh yes. So what you were talking about right there, that it's energy that comes through and not actual language. Even when I'm speaking these messages from spirit, and they come through and like very at least to me they sound like very well put together thoughts and words and sentences. I'm not actually, they're not talking in English to me. And whenever I communicate with my guides, be it my own angel guides or other people's guides or whatever, what comes through is the energy and how it becomes translated. And this is through like my just really like fine-tune awareness and observation. So what happens, like think about this, when you have a thought, say like a simple thought, like, I would like to eat a sandwich, right? If you really pay attention right before these thoughts arise, there's a super specific feeling that we get somewhere in our field. We get this feeling of like, I want to eat a sandwich, but it's not the words yet. And then that feeling of I want to eat a sandwich becomes the words in our head, I want to eat a sandwich. But it started out as like a super specific feeling. And so the energy comes from whatever being is coming through. I feel it as that super specific feeling, and then my mind translates it into English. So it is me and my mind speaking, but it's being translated from the energy that comes through on that really specific feeling frequency that becomes words.
And if anybody's just joining us, or if you're watching this on the replay and you'd like for us to ask a question the next time we do the Channeling with Casey segment, because this will be a regular thing, you can feel free to ask what questions could we pose to Casey, because if you don't ask a question, he can't ask a question. Or I have to think of a question.
Which is where we ran into the problem today, where I was sitting there, do I ask another question? Where am I going with this? So yeah, your questions will make things a lot more smooth and interesting for sure.
And did you miss me? Is it more fun with me on the camera?
Oh, yeah, I was counting the seconds until you.
Well,
no.
for next time it's on a Sunday, we'll plan it for a little bit, give myself a little bit more of a buffer. We'll plan it for 10 o'clock or something like that. I thought it was going to be a quicker transition than it was.
No, it was all good. Spirit had some great words that came through, so maybe you'll get to watch on the replay. I'll probably go back so I can actually listen to what I said and remember it.
Well, the one part that I tuned in for, I saw your cat was just all involved.
Yeah. Well, she was outside of the door. I had the door closed, and she was just complaining, and I was like, there people are going to pick it up off the camera if I don't let her in, so she's going to be a part of it.
I'm not sure, did you do something different with your audio today?
I did. So on my computer settings, I turned down the volume of the mic. Does it sound better?
Oh, it sounds way better than the other day.
Okay, yeah. I found that the volume was like cranked all the way up, and just taking it down to like 70 seems to like really like improve the audio quality.
Oh, you were redlining probably.
Yeah.
But you were like going past. Yeah, cool. Well, I'm glad. It's definitely a noticeable difference. I'm looking forward to getting a new microphone myself, because this one, it really picks up my S's a lot, and it's not that I'm always like but it's actually like the microphone, that how sensitive it is, it picks up those types of things, and things that you never knew that you didn't know when you start doing webcasts.
Right. And yeah, so you're getting your new microphone, and then hopefully whenever they come back in stock, I'll have a fancier, better quality camera.
Yeah, pretty much everything I'm ordering right now, I'm getting in May sometime. Hopefully.
Yeah. For the webcams I was looking at, was like, yeah, we can deliver that to you by like late July. I'm like, oh, wonderful.
Yep. But I believe I have a cam link at the office if you do want to try it, if you have a camera already. I have a cam link, it just didn't work for the thing that I was going to use it for. It may work, I might need it in the future, but in the meantime, if those aren't back ordered to or anything like that, you could at least try it out and make sure it works with what you're looking to do before you try it.
we will definitely talk about that.
Cool. So if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and comment. Let's see what. Ooh, so a question that we could pose, and we'll see what they might say to this. This is my favorite question to ask when dealing with guides, and you already probably have heard me say it, but I like to ask to the guides and our in Access we actually call them teammates because it doesn't give them significance. People have all kinds of predispositions and things that they think about when they hear spirit guides,
Oh
guardian
yeah.
angels, all that. So think, how does the word teammate feel? Because it kind of is of a more neutral thing. It's not one particular lineage or tradition. So when we talk to our teammates, our beings of light and spirit people around us, I like to ask the question, what could I ask you that I don't know I could ask? That if I were to ask could change everything.
So you want me to present that question?
Well, if you like to,
Okay, okay.
or is that too? It's up
Well,
to you.
no, I can ask. They're pretty good at responding. So,
Yeah.
what phrase it again? What was the?
So the question to ask is, what question could we ask that we're not thinking to ask that if we were to ask would change everything?
Okay, so let's ask the guides. My guides, my angels, my ancestors, my animals, my plant guides, the ascended beings, celestial beings, all of my beings of all shapes, forms, and sizes, oneness, source, the universe, all of creation, work with me, in me, through me. Use me as the hollow bone through which your energy, your wisdom, your healing words may flow. I ask the question now, what question could we ask that we're not aware of, but if we were to ask, would change everything? I have one of my guides coming through who's just making all kinds of jokes about this, so it's I'm trying to get a little more serious answer coming through. So let's see. Okay, Graham, I love your sense of humor, but
When I
like,
ask this question to my guides, I usually just get this amazing energy, a possibility that comes from it. And then I tell them, go do that. I don't even need to know the question. Go do that.
um, okay, so anyone want to come through with an answer? Okay, so this is again my angels talking. Who am I is a potent question. We touched on this earlier. Asking who am I opens up the doors for you to discover not just the truth of yourself, but in doing so, you discover the truth behind all of creation. Who am I is an important question for all of us to focus on. And when looking for the answer to any question, realize that the words that come through are not what is important. It is the experience that the words point you towards. And oftentimes, when we do ask a question of ourselves or spirit, it is silence that we receive in response. If silence is what you receive as a response, then listen to that silence. Listen to that silence with all of your intensity, with all of your awareness, with all of your energy. Listen to that silence as if it were the most important message you were ever to receive in your entire life. Because in truth, it is. In that silence lies the answer. And the question that we ask is not nearly as important as the experience of that silence that comes before or after the question, before or after the answer. The silence is where the power and the truth lies. Ask whatever question you wish of Spirit, whichever question decides to come through in the moment. But know that the specific question that you ask, in truth, is entirely unimportant. The questions that you ask are powerful. And the messages that come through can help you to grow and can help others to grow and heal and even awaken. So ask questions, absolutely. But know that the question, the exact wording, and the exact question that you ask, on the grand scheme of things, as far as oneness and source and consciousness are concerned, is entirely unimportant. The silence that comes before, after, and within, and is always present, is what is truly important. So focus on the silence. If you can touch that space where there is nothing, where there is only space, if you can allow yourself to experience that purely without any judgment, without any question or answer coming through, that is where the real magic and truth lies. So if what you get in response to a question is silence, realize that is the greatest answer you could ever receive. Thank you. Thank you, my angel guides.
Yep, that was great. Really beautiful. It kind of makes me feel that I have this one saying. I think I might have said it on our past podcast. A great uh, plug for you guys to go back and watch the whole channel once I get all the videos that are archived uploaded. Uh, but there's that whole story about all these people arguing about what something is, and finally the wise man goes out and says, "Hey, it's an elephant." It's like the whole premise behind the parable is saying God is dot dot dot. Anything you put after that is a limitation, and even saying God is dot 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 is a limitation. That silence is the unlimited possibility of anything and everything that you could ever choose to actualize in your life, and that's the kind of the energy I got a little bit from that answer that your guides came with.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm so grateful that my guides are coming through when I ask these questions for people. Even listen to me talking now, I pause and I say all the time, and like I'm not anywhere near as elegant as communicating these messages as they are. So I'm so grateful that these answers come through so clearly for everyone. And I haven't done this on like a mass scale for a lot of people before, so this is a really cool experience for me. So, but that energy of not putting limitation on it. And when we get like a real specific answer to something, I think going along with what you were saying and what my guides were saying, if we accept the answer and we go, oh yeah, that was what they said, got it, moving on, then yeah, we've really limited ourselves where we could have, experienced the totality of like everything. Instead of that, we're like, oh, we've got this answer, it's this, and then we've kind of blocked ourselves off again, and we're stopping ourselves from growing and furthering ourselves.
Absolutely. Awesome. I'm just curious, like when I do channeling work, which I haven't done ever online before, but who knows? Maybe one day I'll be like, I'm just going to throw one out. But oftentimes my voice will even change. Especially when I do my sonic shaman concerts and a being starts to work through me, my whole voice changes, the language shifts, and you can actually feel it when different people come through. And one of the people in my groups recently, they actually recognized the chant as a very specific Brahmin chant, which I've never experienced before. So
Oh,
it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. That stuff like that happens. Has your voice ever kind of shifted as you've stepped into the space?
Yeah, it has. So I'm not. Some guides have come through like ancestors and things will come through with like almost a bit of an accent almost. But most of the time I'm communicating with like non-human beings for whatever reason. I don't know why, but most of the time it's beings that come through in a form that's not human, and so most of the time it's that kind of relaxed tone that comes through when I'm doing all these messages. It can be a variety of beings, but often I'm just sort of like so blank that I think I'm like physically so relaxed that just a very relaxed voice and tone come through. So I think most of the time that's what happens.
And I'm just posting this now for everybody listening. This is your last chance for asking a question in comments. I've seen people coming in and out, and if you have a question you'd like to pose, we probably have time for another one. We'll give a couple minutes if you want to put a question in comments. And if you are commenting, if you're on like my personal Facebook, every once in a while I forget to make it a public feed and I don't see the comments. So if that is the case, head over to Sonic Shaman or the Holistic Health and Healing Facebook page. Catch it there. We definitely see the comments coming in from the public pages. So ask your question or offer your whatever comment you like to offer. It doesn't have to be a question, I suppose. We love the interaction and playing off the energy of what's in your world right now and how we could cater what we're doing to help you and create more possibility in your life. So.
Yeah, in order to channel a message in response to a question, I do need a question. And as we've go ahead.
No, it's something else that hit me with the message that you just did. Another energy that comes up with it is just your ability to sit down and ask a question is really also stating I'm willing to receive, because you're looking for whatever's going to come from that question, whatever awareness. And I feel that was reminiscent. You might not even remember what you said now, but
no. Yeah, it's almost like, and I get better and better at it the more I do it. But I am in like a trance state when I do that. And so when I come out of it, it is a bit like almost like remembering a dream. How sometimes like when we first come out of it, where a dream is like so vivid and clear, and then like a couple minutes pass and we've lost most of it. And that because I'm in that sort of really relaxed state, trance state, that sort of happens to me.
Very cool. So again, everybody that I saw, some people just joined us. If you want Casey to ask a question for kind of humanity as a collective to his guides, please go ahead and make a comment. We can take one more. He's done, I think, 4 of them this morning so far. The first half of the video is him kind of solo because I had to finish up with something. But we've been asking these questions, and the one that he just asked, which I loved, was this guy. It was was what question could we ask that we don't realize we could ask, that if we were to ask would change everything. And his guys came up. I was kind of, first they were laughing at the question because they're like, what kind of question is that? but really the energy of the question that I was asking and the answer that came through is like, you want to be in the space of not limiting what you're willing to receive by the questions that you think to ask, and by just being willing to receive whatever the possibilities are for you to have in that moment. And it was like a tongue twister question that they pulled through and they delivered very well on.
They always do. It's amazing. I could ask, and sometimes I'll ask a question where I don't as much now, but at least in the beginning, when asking questions of my guides, sometimes I would have the thought, like just fleeting thought of like, how are they going to answer that? Is their answer really going to come through for that question? And like the one I was asking, this actually happened just like a couple of months ago. I felt this like really intense like energy. I was like really dizzy that day, getting hit with these like waves of energy. And a friend of mine experienced the same thing at like the same time that I did. And so she was like, what's up with this? What's going on? Like, I don't know. Let me ask my guides. And so I asked them, like, what's up with these energies we're getting hit with? And I'm like, what are they going to have to really say about that? It's probably just energy. But they came through with this really specific message about like these energy vortexes that were opening up on the planet, and like like super like detailed information about what was happening. And I was like, oh wow, it's so yeah, they're always willing to help and come through with an answer if we're in the space to allow those answers to come through. Definitely. And it looks like we had someone
they were just someone was just saying thank you for taking the time to do these videos. They and you both have been wonderful. So just
Oh,
a little
thank you so
positive
much.
feedback.
Thank you, Shannon.
Actually, like a lot of my friends who I didn't realize were watching, they've actually, when I've run across them, they're like, "Oh, thanks for doing those videos." Even my buddy who lives like in Europe, he's been like catching them and saying, "Wow, these have been really great." Like,
Yeah, I had a friend of mine, same thing. I was talking to him, and he said he had caught like almost every single one of them, and then like my cousin watched a few of them and everything. So thank you all so much for watching, and feel free, please come talk, make comments, interact. We would love to have you.
oh, and please subscribe, because once we hit 100 subscribers, then we can actually have a custom URL and make it easier for people to find us. So that's going to be very important too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, share, subscribe, do all that wonderful, fun stuff.
Right. And now we do have the Stir Crazy Shaman actual channel set up, and I will be uploading all the archive videos to there. And we also just discovered that we have a whole separate audio track for all these, so we're looking at getting that out as a podcast as well. On, I don't know how all that works, but we're learning. All this is brand new. We've just been doing this a week, and I think we've come a long way in a week
Yeah.
of how what we're able to offer and how we're able to offer it. So. I'm looking forward to, if this is what we're doing after a week, imagine after a month.
Oh yeah, it'll be great. Well, oh, someone asked, "What is the YouTube channel?" I'll go subscribe. Oh, that was Shannon again.
Yep,
So yeah,
I will grab that real quick.
yeah. And while he's doing that, also all of these are posted on my YouTube channel, where I also do like stuff outside of this. I do channeled messages from spirit, like I was doing today. I post guided shamanic journeys, guided shamanic meditations, and lots of fun stuff there, all related to like shamanism and my spiritual
Oh,
experience.
which reminds me, why don't you talk about what you're doing today at 1 o'clock? That we just changed how it's offered.
Yeah. Oh, and and we haven't really touched base on the specifics of how we're offering that, but we'll get into it in a second. But I am doing shamanic meditations, and I believe they're still going to be 3 times a week: Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. So today, we're doing a shamanic meditation. It's sort of a hybrid between shamanic journeying, which is where the individual enters into a trance state and then travels through the realms of spirit with their guides for healing and all that, and a guided meditation where someone is talking to you and guiding you through a specific experience. And I say it's a hybrid because I'm not sitting there telling you exactly what you're going to experience and which order, etc., blah, blah, blah. I give general guidance to bring you into the space, and then it is more guided in that I will sort of give suggestions for what you should do in order to focus on a specific topic or healing subject or whatever it is. But I leave the bulk of the experience up to whatever spirit has to present to you. And for anyone who's interested, don't feel intimidated by that. People just following along, going with the flow of it, tend to have really powerful experiences, whether you're experienced with journeying or you've never even meditated before. Anyone can benefit and join in and have fun.
Right. And what we were doing is we had it at a much reduced price point originally, because normally Casey charges when he's at his normal place of massage therapy and all that, $30 or more for a meditation. But we're actually just going to put up a link where if you feel called to, you can make a contribution. Otherwise, it's just a meditation that is intended to go out and help create awakening and consciousness and all that. And if you get something from it, make a contribution for how much change that you feel you're getting from it. Oh, I bet you might pay more for it than you think then. No, but there's no pressure for that. And then plus now with all the uncertainty, a lot of people out of work or having trouble getting unemployment, self-employed people like me and Casey, like we don't get, I think there is something now, but it's not as easy for people who are self-employed even. So like we know that the world is in a bit of a period of adjustment right now, and thought, well, why not offer this as a contribution, and if people are in a position to make a contribution, it is certainly appreciated, but it is not required or even expected.
So it's going to be basically what we're doing here, live stream to like YouTube and Facebook and all that. Is how we're formatting that for people.
Yeah, with the exception of a couple times where the software is in competition, but you could use yours then for it, and still do the live stream and to the Facebook or to the YouTube channels. But but it's going to be all those places with just a link for PayPal or whatnot, or for people who want to make a contribution. And then it's going to be archived for all time. So if you can't make it at the times that he's doing it, you can always catch it on a replay. That's what's really cool about this. This is all information that's going out, that's being rewatched, and just we've only done 5 or 6. I don't know how many 1 hour shows, but I think we're at over 60 hours of how long our stuff has been watched.
Oh, that's awesome.
So people are loving the Stir Crazy Shamans. So
As are we.
yeah, it's great fun, and that's the biggest thing. We're having fun while we're doing it. I think that's why it comes across as something that people really like to experience.
Yeah. If it was a chore to do this, we wouldn't be doing it. So.
No, no, I've been saying like, oh, the stay-at-home order has not been a hardship. I've been spending time with the kids. We spent the day in the yard yesterday, had our first fire. I mean, we've been spending so much more time together as a family. We're all at home, so it's when my wife has a break from her work from home job, we get to go for walks. I mean, it's just amazing. And then I found a pond in the middle of Westlake, like 5 minutes from my house. It's like, wow, this is how does it get any better than this?
Yeah, I know.
More often.
Yeah, and I've had time to get all this online stuff set up. Like I've been, my spirits have told me I'm supposed to be doing this stuff for quite a while, and now have had plenty of time to start to get this set up, and it's been so much fun. But I've also had a lot of time to get out and connect with Mother Earth. The parks are still open around here. I don't know about elsewhere in the world and country, but we can still get outside into the forest and spend a lot of time just really connecting with Pachamama, Mother Earth, and learning from her healing and wisdom. So yeah, to me, it's also been a blessing.
Ooh, and to share with you one cool little nature spot. It's not the forest, but it's a very sacred spot right on Lake Erie. Have you ever been to Columbia Park?
Columbia Park? I don't think so.
No, so
Maybe? I don't know.
yeah, if you take Columbia Road all the way to the north, there's like a little parking lot.
Oh,
and,
yes.
and then you cross the street, you walk down the steps, and there is a waterfall that empties into Lake Erie. And especially the day after a rain, it is like a little mini Niagara Falls, and it is just such an amazing little nature spot because you got the lake there and you got the little stream. We use it in the shaman program for one of the weekends actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you mentioned it was the end of Columbia, and it kind of memory popped in. I have been there a few times when I was younger, but it's been years and years.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful spot.
Now the water is a little bit high. The beach is literally gone. Like you go down, you have to kind of hug the thing to get around and then get on the rocks. But it is still an amazing little spot.
Oh, very cool.
Cool. Any final words of inspiration?
Words of spirit inspirations is like right there. So yeah, words of inspiration for anyone. So I guess we've been talking about like kind of like channeling, language of light, all that stuff today. If you feel called towards any of this, but you're almost feeling, I know like some people can feel sort of intimidated or overwhelmed at like the prospect of how do I even get started? Or they may feel like, am I even worthy, or whatever kind of feelings your ego comes up with around these thoughts. Don't let that limit yourself. Just start, just start practicing. And even if you feel silly and you feel like you're making it up or whatever, it doesn't matter if the mind is, questioning and, am I making this up? Is this all in my head? Again, just say, that's fine, whatever. I'm making it up. Now let me do my thing. Don't let any of that stop you. Just start. If you feel called, if you're interested, start right now.
Right, and kind of in the same energy of what you offered is take the word want out of your vocabulary for that stuff, because we have been sitting around on autopilot wanting things to change and wanting to be more spiritual and wanting all these things. Now is the time for action. Actions speak louder than words. So ask yourself every day, what can I be today? What could I do today to bring these things into my life? What could I choose that will bring that closer to me? And it's never sitting around saying, I want this. Do your part. If you want to connect with nature, go for a walk. If you want to connect with your guides, say, hey guides, I'm here, and just sit and be present with them. Even if you get nothing, because you're getting something, you might just not be noticing it. But being in that space and actually taking the time and doing the actions to actualize the things in your life. And actualization is that they show up. Don't get caught up in manifestation. Manifestation is how things show up. So if you're only willing to receive information from your guide, if it shows up one specific way, it's like you're only tuned into one channel on your radio, where you really could be picking up from all the channels of your radio. So take the how and take the want out of the energy of what you're looking to actualize in your life, and it can happen very quickly in an instant if you're in the allowance of it.
Absolutely. Agreed. Love it. So yeah, for anyone who stayed to the end, thank you so much for watching. All that good stuff, like, share, subscribe, and thank you for your attention, your energy. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
A Nike, a Nike, a Nike.